Hello, Sharks fans! My name is Jacob Boyd, and I'll be presenting to you today the Timo Meier trade outcome and my opinion on who won the trade and a general perspective of the San Jose Sharks' outlook on the trade itself. I understand that this deal was completed at last year's trade deadline, but this is my second trade talk episode, and I do think this is a good time to talk about this as the Sharks and Devils will start their first full season either with or without Timo Meier. But getting into this trade, the New Jersey Devils received Timo Meier, Scott Harrington, Zachary Amond, Santeri Hataka, Timur Ibrahimov, and a 2024 fifth round pick. I'll go ahead and bring that in for you guys to see here. There it is. And this is the trade outcome between the Devils and the Sharks. But I just kind of went over who the Devils got in this one so far. The Devils also had the Sharks retain 50% of Timo Meier's contract, which was only for the last year, as he was on a 1 year remaining on his deal as of last year, meaning that Meier was an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and any team that was going to be receiving his rights would have had to settle on a new contract at the time of the trade or by the start of the new free agency period. Obviously, we know that the Devils did end up re-signing him to an 8-year, $8.8 million AAV contract. So that was already like proof in the pudding there that the Devils wanted to keep him. And it wasn't just a rental. But who did the Devils get for Timo who did the Devils get in the Timo Meier trade? They got a guy that shoots the puck at every chance he has. He'll shoot from the point. He'll shoot from the half wall. He'll get in the dirty areas and shoot, from in close. That being said, he also has, 2 30-plus goal seasons and now 1 40-goal season last year. In those 3 seasons that he had 30-plus goals, he had over 60 points. And in the season that I just mentioned that he had less than 30 goals, he pointed out under 50 points in those seasons as well. Let me mention that in those 3 down seasons, he was hurt. So injuries are a bit of a concern with him. Timo is a player that has good size and is a strong power forward, which has skill. He was loved by Sharks fans because of that, and of course his goal scoring prowess. But not only that, I believe Sharks fans love their own drafted players, and that for that matter, just about any team loves their own drafted players. They always want to see them do well. So Timo Meier was an early draft pick at 9th overall in the 2015 draft. I think strong power forwards that skate and are hard-nosed, players and physical like him, they are really, one of a kind. And, I think that the NHL took notice of him, and the Devils wanted that style of player who can skate, who can shoot, and who plays tough along the boards. If a player has those qualities, teams want to lock them up. The New Jersey Devils, they locked them up and for 8 years, and good for them. He is a great player and obviously the best player in this trade. There is a caveat to that last statement, though, I made in terms of the Sharks. In my belief, Timo Meier would have re-signed with the Sharks, but it would have been for more money than he was worth. I was hearing that he wanted around 10.5 million AAV from the Sharks to stay with the rebuilding franchise, if not even more. But, with that 10.5 million AAV, Sharks fans, I think would have jumped on that because they love Timo Meier so much. But in all reality, that is just way too much for a single player on a rebuilding franchise. A lot of Sharks fans fall in love with the name and the player and how well he did as a Shark. Those are all very good points that everybody makes, but we as a Sharks team and a Sharks organization are in rebuild mode, and for a player of that caliber just didn't fit and just didn't make sense at this time, where the Sharks are needing to get rid of salary cap and to produce, like, get incoming players that are younger, and guys that are Timo Meier just don't want to be in a situation for the rebuild. Um, so with that said, the Sharks would have had to overpay to keep his services because Meier didn't want to stay with the franchise that was rebuilding, like I said, or it was at least a mitigating factor. I know this was never stated to the media, but I truly believe that Meier wanted to be traded for a chance to play in the playoffs and to a playoff contender. But I also believe he would have stayed if the Sharks overpaid him. So either way, the Devils got him for 8.8 by 8 years, meaning that the Sharks would have had to overpay him by an additional 1.7 million per season at the very least. So in my estimation, that is overpriced because other teams have 50 plus goal scorers making less than 9 million per year. So overall, Timo Meier had a poor showing in the playoffs as well, with only 2 goals and 2 assists in 11 games played. He did miss a few games from that hit he took from Jacob Trouba in the Rangers series, where Meier skated to the puck into the offensive zone and just got annihilated. I'll show you here. Um, you know, he was skating into the offensive zone. He got hit with he got caught with his head down. Jacob Trouba just lays him out, gets him high in the head area, but all in all, pretty bad hit if you ask me. And so with that, either way, a huge part of this trade where it was put into the condition where the Devils made the 2023 or 2020 made the draft picks 2023 or 2024 Eastern Conference Finals or better, and Meier play at least 50 games. Of the Devils will give up a first or second round pick depending on if they make the Eastern Conference Finals or not. Now, the Devils didn't make the Eastern Conference Finals last year in 2023. They were one series away, but Sharks fans, they can always hope for the Devils to be good this year and hopefully make the Eastern Conference Finals or better for that first round pick. And it would get moved to 2025 if it was a first round pick. But if they don't make the Eastern Conference Finals or better, it goes to it stays as a second round pick in 2024. The remaining players that the Devils got in this trade were pretty much throw-ins with, Scott Arrington, who literally got waived. Zachary Amon got waived now with, I think, Montreal. And then Santeri Hatakka and Timur Ibrahimov. The only players that, are still left from this deal is Santeri Hatakka, and he's looking like a career AHL player. So, the Sharks really didn't give up much in terms of, value with this one. He was a he was drafted by the Sharks in the 6th round. Just you could see he really didn't. He had 12 points for the Barracuda in 21-22 and only 2 points in 8 games for the Barracuda, the Sharks AHL affiliate, in 22 and 2023. So, really Sharks fans, they're not missing much on giving up that. So, lastly, the Devils received the 2024 5th round pick via Colorado from the Sharks. So the Sharks received the 2024 5th round pick from Colorado in a separate trade. The Sharks trade this one in this draft in this trade as well. But 5th round picks, they don't really, amount to much. So Devils fans, don't expect much on that front. Now for who the Sharks received back in this trade. So as you can see here, the Sharks received Andreas Johnson, I should say, Fabian Zetterlund, Nikita Hoytuk, Shakir Mukhamadullin, a 1st-round pick in 2023, which ended up being Quentin Musty, and a conditional 1st-round pick in 2025 or a 2nd-round pick in 2024, depending on the Devils' playoff outcome. And lastly, the Sharks also did receive another 2024 7th-round pick. So everyone from Sharks fans to hockey writers all over the NHL landscape thought the Sharks lost this deal and didn't get enough. I couldn't tell you how many more or how many people I heard with writers and pundits and even Sharks writers themselves all didn't think that the Sharks got enough. But I personally want to, stop people from overreacting to trades for big names in the first place, because I don't know how many times writers and fans alike are completely wrong. And I don't want to, tell you listeners that you're wrong in terms of like feeling a certain way in terms of trades. I think that's, part of being a fan is saying, who might have won and who might have lost. But in most instances, the teams that are receiving that big name player generally win out in the short term, but lose out in the long term, just in general. Yes, there are some, instances such as like the Joe Thornton trade that I think the Sharks just absolutely robbed Boston back when we got Joe Thornton. And I'm sure Sharks fans can think of other instances, but if you look at the overall longevity of these big trades, the teams getting the big player are generally short-term value. Now, I do think in this instance, the Devils, it's not just a short-term value with Timo Meier, and that's why a lot of Sharks fans are feeling the way that they did at the time of the trade. But I do think the return that the Sharks did get, a lot of people are underestimating that value. Here's why I think about that the Sharks did come out with good prospects. So Nikita Hoytuk may make the Sharks 2023 roster out of camp this year. He is injured right now, probably a minor lower body injury, but he looked really good in camp and he looked great in preseason. He's a big, physical, strong body that can move the puck with ease. And he has a good shot from the blue line. So he does, have to clear waivers if the Sharks do send him down to the Barracuda. So that could be, potential where we could possibly lose him to another NHL team if they pick him up. But I do think he still might make the team coming out of camp, but we'll see. I know he's on the non-rostered, IR right now, so we'll see what happens and what Mike Greer and Coach Quinn want to do with him. And it'll be interesting to see if we did take him off of the IR. Will he be a healthy scratch? Who will we send down? Will it be Giovanni Smith? Will it be Fabian Zetterlin to keep, both Ty Emberson and Nikita Hoytuk on the roster? We'll have to see. But I do believe he could be a good third line D pairing to start his career with the Sharks if it is now. And as Sharks fans, you hope to see him develop and grow as the season progresses, whether that's with the NHL side or the AHL side. Excuse me. And you just hope for that development and growth from that prospect. But he was not even the main prospect, or they called it a grade C prospect, and not even a grade B, but I really love his game. Next, you probably have the one guy that I think was the key prospect in this trade, and he wasn't even a grade A prospect. He was the grade B prospect that the Devils had in terms of when this trade occurred and what pundits and hockey writers were stating, and scouts alike. But that was Shakir Mukhamadullin. He is a defenseman who came over from the KHL last year and put up and came over to the Barracuda and scored a goal and 9 assists in around 11 games played for the Barracuda. Then proceeded to, come into the rookie face-off this year and just dominate. And you love to see it from a young player who just looks, the part. He's, big, tall, strong. Everybody's saying that just the appearance looks like Chris Pronger, Coach Quinn said. But, I think his skating and his play also look to me a little like Chris Pronger. So Sharks fans, just take a look at that. I'm not saying he is. Nobody's really Chris Pronger, but he does look like it in terms of his mannerisms. Then training camp, out of training camp, he was probably the best D-man out there over, like the likes of Vlasic, Ferraro, Benning, all these, key contributors that are going to be on the Sharks NHL roster this year. He was better than all of them. And then he proceeded to, dominate the preseason. He was the best D-man out there every single night that he played. And he was playing against pretty high level competition. A couple times the Kings threw out one of their better lineups, and he was in, and I really loved his game. So it's going to be really interesting. Obviously he's not going to be on the Sharks roster in terms of the NHL squad. He's going to be playing in the AHL Barracuda this season. It's only because he needs more time to develop in North America's on North American ice. So that's going to be a huge stepping stone. And we also want him to be more on the level with Will Smith when he gets brought up, probably next year. Now, he is younger than Hoytuk, and so that's why Hoytuk, his entry-level contract was expiring last year, so we had to actually put him on we have to either put him on an NHL contract or we have to send him through waivers and he has to clear. Anyways, I wanted to mention the first round pick that we also received from the New Jersey Devils, which brought us Quentin Musty. Musty is a big-bodied kid, which really reminds me of Timo Meier. Musty is slightly taller than Meier, where, Musty's 6'2", Meier's 6'1", but Musty can fly. He is a power forward, just like Timo Meier. He has a good shot, just like Meier. And, he skates a lot with the puck, kind of like Meier. So I'm not saying this kid is going to be Timo Meier, but I do want to say that this kid does have the attributes of a Timo Meier and has the making that can play like him. So if the Sharks get anything near what Timo Meier can produce with him in the future, this kid is going to be a steal. He was the number 26th overall pick. He was our second first round pick this year and number 26 overall. So, kudos to Mike Grier by getting him where they did, because he was listed as a top 15 prospect on, many scouts boards. And nobody thought Musty was going to be falling to the San Jose Sharks at number 26. A lot of people think, was there character issues with Quentin Musty? Because, why would he drop down to number 26 if he was, a top 15 prospect? No. This kid, has, all the makings of, he loves hockey. He gets into the gym. He competes every day for a job. He does all those little things, and he didn't have the characteristics of who was our first round pick just a few years ago, the demon that had a bunch of characteristics, and I can't think of his name right now. Not like him. So unfortunately, I can't think of his name right now. It's kind of skipping me, but we traded him to Colorado in return for Martin Kaut. But anyways, moving forward, he was the first draft pick in the first round that we got in this trade, and I love this pick by Mike Grier. Lastly, the Sharks did receive Andreas Johnson, who stuck around and played for the Sharks last year, but then wasn't retained by Mike Grier, which was the right thing to do. He didn't really produce and wasn't, I don't think is an NHL caliber player anymore. He also got waived this year by whatever team he was on. But Mike Grier did sign Fabian Zetterlund, who was also on this deal, who did play well for the New Jersey Devils and had quite a bit of points for them by the time this trade happened. He was a bottom 6 role player, but didn't finish the season like, I think Sharks fans wanted. I don't think Mike Grier wanted him to finish the season like he did. He really didn't score at all coming over to the Sharks. Just super unimpressed with Fabian Zetterlund so far. He does have a nice shot. I hope that he can, have a better start to the season this season, like he kind of did with the Devils. But the Devils were a lot better team, and so maybe he just plays at a higher quality on those better teams. Not sure. We'll see what happens this year. With all that being said, though, for both Sharks and Devils, I truly believe the Devils win out on this trade, but I will have to say I love the return GM Mike Grier got with not just the prospects, but the potential in Quentin Musty and whatever that additional draft pick, coming through the pipeline will be. So super, super excited, for the future of the San Jose Sharks with this trade. I understand that Sharks fans wanted, Dawson Mercer or, Alexander Holtz, just because they were, grade A prospects or high draft picks for that matter. But because they were drafted ahead of, a Hoychuk and Mukhamadullin, they were graded at letter grades A instead of, Mukhamadullin as B and Hoychuk as a C prospect. But what Sharks fans and hockey writers don't see is that Dawson Mercer could already be on pace to be just as good as Timo Meier, in my opinion. I understand that the points were not as high as Timo Meier for the last season, but if you watched during the playoffs and down the stretch of last year, Dawson Mercer came on, like a bat out of hell and just dominated, the NHL. And I believe Dawson Mercer might be one of the Devils' best players next year. I know that they have Hughes. I know that they have other great players, but Mercer was their best player, I think, in in the playoffs, that is, for the New Jersey Devils, and also down the stretch. I don't think the Devils would have ever parted, ways with him, as he was already in the NHL and producing, and you know, could be, or they had the potential to be better than Meier in the trade. So I don't think Dawson Mercer was ever a part of that trade. I know Sharks fans wanted him so bad, just because of what he did after the trade and in the playoffs. But there's no way that the Devils were gonna give that up. They already saw that he had good potential, and that just wasn't going to be the case. And me personally, I probably wouldn't have done that trade just even straight up. That's my opinion. But yeah. Also with Alexander Holtz, he's been really underwhelming for you know in the NHL level. He had 2 stints in the NHL and really only produced like 2 assists, and in 2 separate years. I just don't see Alexander Holtz as being one of those top grade A prospects like everybody else does. But he did have a great couple of years in the AHL where he was almost a point per game. But if you can't transition that to the NHL level, then I don't know what kind of player you are. So we will see with Alexander Holtz. It could have been where, Mike Greer was just getting less of a, prospect pool back if they added him into the trade. So, with being Hoychuk and Mukhamadullin, that's why we probably got an additional second round or maybe even first round obligation or conditional obligation. So, I'm glad that we actually got that first to second round pick and Mukhamadullin, because I think Mukhamadullin has been, that grade A prospect that a lot of people didn't know coming out of that draft that he was going to be that good. But yeah, the Sharks fans, that's going to be it for me on this episode of the Timo Meier trade. I hope you guys like this analysis on this one. So if you guys liked it, please subscribe if you want to hear more Sharks content like this. Also, check out my Erik Karlsson trade talk episode listed here in the closing credits. My name is Jacob Boyd with Hello Sharks fans. Peace.